welcome to Lit and Bruised, an Atlanta literary podcast. I'm Matt DeBenedictis.
And I'm John Carroll.
We're almost done with the season, and we've still got this great contest going on. All you got to do is leave a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or Spreaker for Lit and Bruised, and you can win a whole big old box of books, including stuff from Tom Cheshire, Elena Huff Tucker, Jamie Iredell, Nate Mask, Ryan J., Teresa Davis, and even Maddie Faye's chapbook. Maddie Faye read on the last episode, so if you were super into that, here's a way to get her chapbook and a whole bunch of other people's work. So join in.
That Maddie Faye story was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
I enjoyed that. Well, on this episode, we have local journalist, writer, amazing woman, Christina Lee. And if you're not familiar, she's been published in The Guardian, Rolling Stone, Pitchfork, Billboard, Spin, Gawker, and Complex magazine. She's amazing, and we have some pretty fun discussion about music in general, hip-hop, and even some pop-punk going back to Blink-182. It was awesome, and it was silly, but it's always an honor to have Christina Lee in our presence.
We hope you enjoyed the episode. How's it going, John?
It's going really great. How are you?
I'm doing good. How was Transgression?
Oh,
I mean, I got to see it on the final night.
Let me ask you, how was Transgression?
Well, for our listeners that don't know, even though we've plugged it numerous times, Transgression started out as live lit that was interactive, and now it's become kind of still that, but more theater based. Yeah,
there's scripts now, where originally it was monologues that the characters would write themselves. They were writers, and now we write the scripts.
Yeah.
So what'd you think?
It was fantastic. This was the third of the Hook series.
Yeah, third of the Peter Pan, second Star to the Right, and this was the grand finale, Hook versus Pan. It was the 8th transgression ever in the third in the series.
Well, one of the things I loved was the use of underground Atlanta for it.
Yeah, that was pretty insane. I mean, being in the former Dante's Down the Hatch, which, it's been boarded up and abandoned for about 20 years. And then to be able, the shows move. So then you move up into underground Atlanta for the final sword fight. And yeah, it was cool, and it
was great to build the prison for the kids around all the garbage that was already there.
Yeah, it's insane. We have a really great team. We've got Elizabeth Jarrett is our director and producer, and she acted in the play. And
Adam Lowe was Hook.
Laura Relier and I, we write the scripts. We've written the last 3. And then, Mallory Coleman does our set deck and props. And then we've got Katie Culp and Craig White from Southeast Costume Company that make everyone look so fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cast, I could go on forever. That show had about 20 people in there that were just doing amazing things. So it was really, for me, I thought it was wonderful. It was beautiful. Everyone was so professional and did such a great job, and we had so much fun. And people, you often wonder after a show like that, people are like, that was really great, I love it. And then you think to yourself, are you just telling me that because it was my show? But I think genuinely, everyone loved it. I think everybody had a great time. The cast loved it. And it was just so fun. It was a really cool way to end a trilogy that we had created of Peter Pan. And it's also really cool to be done with a trilogy. I'm glad. I love Peter Pan. I loved it since I was a kid, and it was fun to do our own take on it.
This was actually, aside from the Robin Williams movie, this was my only other experience with anything Peter Pan.
Really?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, because we did that twist ending. Peter does it in our show, because it's over. I can just say whatever I want.
Yeah.
We have Wendy kills Hook and not Peter Pan, and that's. That was an executive decision that I actually made, because I was just kind of reviewing the scripts and reviewing how it was going in the show, and it just made the most sense that, that this story was about Wendy.
Yeah.
Which made that so much fun, just to like change the ending of this classic, and make our own version of it. So yeah, man, it was great. I definitely appreciate you coming, and anybody who's listening who came, thank you so much. We had a great time, and
if you didn't come, you missed out.
Yeah, but we're going to come back in the fall. We're not sure what we're going to do yet. We always have to find the space before we create the show, but we've got some ideas in the works, and we're hopefully coming back in October with some more adult subject matter. We've been doing fairy tales for almost 2 years because we did Lost in Oz before we did Peter Pan.
Because you mostly, you and Laura and Elizabeth kind of focus on it being free domain.
Yeah, public domain is where we live because you can't get in trouble for using that stuff. So we've definitely, we've always had a lot in the cooker, so to speak, in terms of ideas for episodes. And so we've got a few main ones that we're looking at right now. But, that's the interesting thing about Transgression when you're doing site-specific, immersive theater. You've really have to know your space. And sometimes you might have a really great idea and you're like, oh man, I really want to do this. But then you get a space available to you and it just doesn't fit. So you have to tweak it to make, you might have to change the whole theme, which Laura and I early on when we were running it, we did that. Peter Pan was a little bit different though, because, you're writing this, you're like, well, we need a Darling's house. We need Neverland with the Lost Boys and we need Neverland with the Pirates. So we had certain sites that we just had to have. And, thank God that there were people in Atlanta who believed in what we were doing because they let us have the spaces that we had envisioned for it. And that's really amazing. And that's really ballsy, too. I can't believe we did it. That was gutsy. It was insane. I'll never do that again. Say, we're going to do these 3 shows and we need these 3 places to do it. My God, that's a lot of luck. Yeah. And that's a lot of goodwill. And to credit Laura and Elizabeth, they were the ones who secured those locations. I had nothing to do with the security.
I've said this to you and Laura on occasions. I think I said it on the podcast episode in season 1, but everything with Transgression seems to be like a creative dare.
It really is, because after you do a show, you think, how can we go bigger? And after we did Oz, which was considered a literary show, the only thing I could think of to go bigger, and Laura and I talked about it and had a meeting and discussed, and the only thing we could do was go to theater, because we had kind of done as big as you could go with literary, with doing a show on a 5-acre farm. Like how much bigger do you get for literary? So we were like, we'd go to theater, and that's when we brought on Elizabeth Jarrett full time as an actual partner in Transgression. She had worked on a lot of shows with us and had always been around because she's amazing. But that was where this is the next step to get bigger. And so we've got some plans already. We've got some fun stuff lined up for Transgression. It's going to get it's going to get more immersive. We've got some weird ideas, and
I got beer poured all over me, so I don't know where else you're going to go.
The bartender do that?
No.
Who poured beer on you? Was it Peter Pan?
No, it was one of the pirates.
Oh, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
they were assholes, but that's what made them so charming. But what really goes well with Peter Pan? Rap music.
Good segue.
Yeah, if Hook came out to 2 Chainz, that'd have been a lot more intimidating. Pirate music is pretty solid, but a hard hitting like Dr. Dre beat.
Well, here's a good question.
Way more intimidating.
Captain Hook, what would be his song?
Oh, would be his walkout song?
Yeah, I think it would be "Sleep When You Die" by 2 Chainz.
Yeah, that's or it could be like "Forgot About Dre," but it's like "Forgot About Hook," and it's Eminem singing it. I don't know.
Christina, what do you think?
Oh my God, I came up. There is an Atlanta classic here called "Watch for the Hook." Actually,
yes,
which is kind of funny. I don't know if it has the swagger that Captain Hook would require, but let's table this conversation. I'm sure there's plenty of options for him, honestly.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Watch for the Hook. I think that wins. Who did that song?
Oh my god, I'm blanking out on the artist, but it's like a old Dungeon Family song.
Oh,
so
nice.
like it came out from the same camp as like Outkast and like Goody Mob and all that good stuff. I'm actually kicking myself for forgetting the artist, but it's okay.
Well, thank you for weighing in on that. And if you're listening right now, that's Christina Lee. And Christina Lee is she's, I don't know, in terms of Atlanta literary scene, I mean, we go way back.
We do.
I mean, we go back about 7-8 years, all three of us. Mm-hmm. You know, I did my first reading with you, and I think that might have been your first reading.
It absolutely was.
Yeah, the Purge ATL Valentine's Day 2011 reading at the Wren's Nest, which comes up often on the show. It's funny, but we read there together.
And it was like an anti-Valentine's Day affair, right?
It's not me, it's you. That's what
that was
exactly.
it. You know, the poster hangs in my bathroom. So if you want to use the bathroom later, you can see your name on my wall.
I actually still have the poster too. It's funny that you bring that up, but it's actually in my office right now.
It's a good poster. That was J-Trav designed that.
Yeah, J-Trav did. Jason Travis. Yeah, because he did a lot of things with Purge back in the day. He was one of the photographers for it. And no, that was a fun reading. Matt hosted this reading, and I probably read it like 10 times the speed that you should read a piece, I believe. And no, it was fun. So, I mean, you and I, we wrote for Purge for a really long time together and put out a lot of cool articles and had a lot of fun doing that. So,
yeah, I don't know if I've like formally said this, but Purge was, you know, a huge, like, by working with Purge, it like connected me with so many people who I know in Atlanta today, even if we just see each other at a reading and this and that, because by the time that I got involved, I had probably like just moved to Atlanta only like a couple months prior. The only prior writing experience I really had was through like internships and like writing for the Alt Weekly, like back in DC and stuff. So I like cold emailed him after looking at Purge's website, and I was like, oh my God, I need to like, you know, start to write for these folks, because then maybe I could actually get to know the city, right? So what kind of asshole was I? I was like, I don't know anything about this city. Just like send me to write to anyone, anywhere. Like, just let me help you. And like Tim met up with me at like Righteous Room and was like, cool. Like, yeah, absolutely. I'm totally down. And it was through that, like you said, that I met you. I met Matt. I met Laura. I met so many people.
Yeah.
Kudos to Tim Song.
Absolutely.
I don't think Tim Song realizes the impact of what he created with that. You know, he's such a humble guy anyway and very self-deprecating. But I often think back that, because I didn't know a lot of writers in Atlanta at the time. And so when I joined up with Purge when it first started, I met like 5 or 10 writers that I was like, oh, they exist. It's not just me on my blogger account just sitting over here, because I, you know, just being alone. And, you know, I knew that Matt was writing and that was about it. So definitely.
But what made Purge really great, and why, like, Christina, why it was awesome for you to figure out the city through that was the whole purpose of Purge was, can we relay what's happening in the art and culture and life in this city just on a screen? How can we do that through pictures and text? And basically everyone's limit was how far are you willing to go yourself?
Yeah.
And that was it. And we were all hungry, and we loved having no rules beyond our own limitations.
Right, exactly. And yeah, beyond that, it definitely felt like an insider's guide that I felt so honored to be part of.
It was fun. I miss it. You know, I mean, the photography was beautiful. I mean, you had Tim Song, and you had Jason Travis. Who else was a photographer for that magazine? Oh my God, Christy. What was Christy's last name? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to forget her name. She shot half my articles, and I can't think of her name.
Well, this was like 8 years ago, if you can believe that.
I know.
You know
still,
what I mean?
I barely remember 3 years ago.
I know. Hold on. I'm getting on Facebook. I'm doing this because I can't bring this up and not mention Christy Perry was a wonderful photographer. Still is. I haven't seen her in a couple of years, but she and I worked together quite a bit, and she shot a lot of the stories that I worked on, and she was amazing. I knew her. I've known her for years and years and years. We used to like hang out at house parties together. But yeah, Christy Perry was another one. And there's just so many talented people that came out of that, you know, just incredible people that are off doing really interesting things now. So kudos to that. But But hey, we're not here to have a Purge episode. We're here to have a Christina Lee episode. So we're just going to read off some of your accolades because, hey, why not? Let's brag about you. So you've written about hip hop for The Guardian, Rolling Stone, Pitchfork, Billboard, Spin, Gawker, Complex, and I know this other one that's going to make you cringe because we talked about earlier was Maxim.
Oh my God. That was
but you were a model for Maxim, right?
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you look it up, that's the exact first thing that shows up.
Is this you in a bikini?
Yeah.
Scantily clad?
I think there was like a human-sized teddy bear like in the corner. It was a very confusing photo shoot, like very confused direction. It's why I don't like to talk about it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to talk about it. You want to go to like the Guardian trap stories. Things like that. I love those pieces.
I'm wondering though, because I know you, I wouldn't say I know you really well. It's not like I know you like the deep, dark secrets of Christina Lee, but I know you, and we've hung, we've done some things, hung out, done some interviews, talked about writing, been around the block a few times. What brought on this love for writing about hip hop?
It's funny because clearly I'm not like, I don't consider myself like an expert or anything, and I still don't. And I think it's mainly because at the time that I was becoming interested in hip hop was actually around the time that I just became really interested in like music, period.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a household that had just basic cable until maybe high school, which is absolutely the worst time to get like
no
all the
MTV
cable.
Or anything.
I did not grow up with MTV. I would only see episodes of Daria like if I went over to like my aunt's house, right? So, but then for whatever reason, my mom, I guess she finally found a cable package that she liked, and so she got one for the house. And of course, like during high school, I should be concentrating on like what SATs or something like that. I did none of that bullshit.
Yeah.
No, I would sneak down to the basement. And actually just bring my homework down and just watch MTV, MTV2, BET. Like, so I was being exposed to all this music all around the same time because before I was only really listening to like top 40 radio. So, I mean, looking back, I was discovering Jay-Z and the Roots like around the same time that I was discovering, Headbangers Ball and stuff like that. So it was kind of funny. It wasn't really until though, when I moved to Atlanta in 2010, when I really kind of, like, I had just moved. I had just completed the last possible internship I possibly could because I was getting old, and I was like, okay, so I need to get a job. And I was like, well, what can I possibly do? I don't have the funds to move to New York. The last internship I had was at Paste Magazine in Decatur, Georgia. So it made sense.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you guys were Paste.
Right. So, like...
You made them interesting?
Huh?
Nothing.
So by the time I decided, okay, I was going to settle into Atlanta, I had to like figure out like, okay, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to set myself apart? There are so many music writers. I mean, Matt could probably attest to this. There's so many of us, and there's no real good way for us to set each other apart if we're going to write about every neutral milk hotel in the entire world.
Yeah.
So my interest in hip hop was very natural, but at the same time, once I really settled in, one of the first big jobs I had was like trailing Waka Flocka Flame in a video shoot. And I was like, oh, it became abundantly clear what I needed to do. And even though I didn't completely know what I was doing, I saw that it was interesting. I saw that it was exciting. And I saw that there was a demand for it.
Yeah.
That's a very long-winded answer.
No,
That's a very good answer.
That's the point of it. So go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, I think that's such a great way to come into hip hop writing because so many come into it like, oh, I'm a lifer, all this, and what they write tends to be very kind of skewed, and they're not really looking at bigger pictures.
Yeah. I feel like I'm not the best hip hop writer or most authoritative, and I say that a lot just because the debates about like what's good and what's great and what's like considered timeless, all the sort of things that people tend to get caught up in, like I tend to find incredibly boring.
Yeah. And
I don't know if it's just because I had affinity toward like punk music growing up and seeing how people were completely like irreverent, But yeah, those sorts of debates where like people like argue about, is this going to be a classic album or not? Those are the least interesting debates.
Yeah, because
you
eventually then you start to be like, well, who came up with the term classic? Oh, that came from the source. It's like, okay, this is a really boring conversation.
Right, exactly. And plus, like, I mean, if you think about it, like, music isn't, I mean, that's the whole point. That's what makes music really exciting, is this idea of like innovation and this idea that you can just feel around if you really want to. Like, I do listen to like a lot of like quote unquote older school like artists and stuff like that, but they figured out how to make, like, I mean, it's kind of like, I guess the best analogy I could think of is like if everyone tells you like, oh, you really need to read Hemingway. And then what ends up happening is that you just get a bunch of Hemingway imitators. But it's like, well, what if you took what you liked of his style and figured out how to make it your own? I think, you know, that's way more interesting to me.
Did you get married?
I'm engaged.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We really don't hang out that much.
I just saw this. I saw this like 2-stone rock on your finger. I'm sorry I completely just changed the subject of conversation.
It's okay.
I was like, damn, look at that.
Can I tell you about that proposal? Because it is related to this subject. So,
hey, I apologize. I haven't seen your fiance in like 2 years. What's his name again?
it's Mike.
Mike. He's the Russian guy.
Yeah.
You remember that?
He worked in Russia, yeah.
So, Christina's fiance, he was in Russia. Was he working for CNN?
He had been working for CNN previously, and then he spent a year working for RT, which is like the CNN equivalent over in Moscow. He spent a year doing that because when do you get an opportunity to like work abroad? And I mean, Moscow might not have been his first choice, but it was an opportunity nonetheless. And it was really illuminating, you know, no less because, like, I think right when he left, like, Pussy Riot was becoming a thing.
Yeah.
And, like, Edward Snowden had just retreated, so... I
remember seeing you at that time, and you were, like, you'd reference this boyfriend. And
I know.
You and I had I had a joke about it, and I would call him, like, your fictitious boyfriend.
Sure.
I was like, where is this boyfriend you keep speaking of? And she would say, he's in Russia. And I was like,
how do I even make this stuff up?
That sounds pretty convenient that he's not.
Sure.
And then one
it's
day,
better than saying he's in Canada.
Yeah, exactly. And then one day I was sitting there and I was like, hey, Christina, I ran into you somewhere, and you're like, this is my boyfriend Mike from Russia. But he's not from Russia, he's just there. And I was like, oh shit, she wasn't lying. She was telling the truth. She actually had a boyfriend. And you're a very good girlfriend. I mean, a year. Whew.
Yeah, we had done long distance like several times at that point. And the key is definitely knowing the end date. It's like, okay, you're going to be there for a year.
The light at the end of the tunnel.
Right, exactly.
He's a great guy. You know, we worked together on the Mass Hysteria transgression, which was the third one. And y'all created some really cool installation pieces.
God, that was so much fun.
Yeah, he did that. I still remember the piece he did. He did that video on MK Ultra, and it was like this weird psychedelic video. And we played it for a crowd, and we played both of your all's things because you had done a story on kind of the conspiracy around
whether Tupac was alive or not.
Yeah. Like Machiavelli and Tupac. And if you're listening, that was a conspiracy theory like installation with found objects.
But not only that, it was the most terrifying reading that has ever taken place.
I love that. See, that's what I go for extremes, Matt. That's all I got.
Yeah, and it was extreme.
Yeah.
Basically, how many writers were involved in it?
So in the entire installation, there was 35 writers and artists from Atlanta creating found pieces of art or literature that are based on conspiracy theories and urban legends.
And then it was made to look like it was in a bunker. And then
it was like Agent Fox Mulder from the X-Files had a bunker. That literally was like.
And then we did a reading in that with basically.
Yeah, you co-hosted.
Yeah, and we basically
awesome.
had no lights except for like the flashing TVs.
Yeah, we had the flashing TVs, maybe some candles, and we all had flashlights. And it was Daniel Lamb read this piece about like an occult or about a cult, and then Kelly Outler read a piece about demon possession. And then we played your piece. It was like this recording. We just like hit play and people listened to it. It was funny. All these people sitting in this warehouse listening
off of like a boombox.
Yeah, like listening to this thing about you talking about whether Tupac was alive. And then I think we might have opened it up, or at some point we played Mike's MK Ultra video, and people were just I don't know what they thought, and you know what? I didn't fucking give a shit. It was awesome. It was such a good reading.
I felt like I needed to like scrub myself after.
Kelly Allers' piece, man, on demon possession, which she read for the Halloween reading of this Lit and Bruised in the first season. That thing is creepy. Mm-hmm. It's a creepy ass story. It's like these journal entries from a nurse who's taking care of like a demon possessed patient at her hospital. This is
creepy. Is hard to pull off without being corny.
Yeah, totally. And lots of people pulled that off for that installation and reading.
It's one of those rare moments where it just felt like everything kind of came together.
Yeah. Transgression's really lucky like that. I don't know how we do it. It just happens. I want to hear about your engagement story, though.
Oh, my God. It's so good.
Tell us this.
So, our anniversary just happens to be on Thanksgiving.
Ooh.
And Thanksgiving is at once. So, it's a good holiday, but it's also... It can kind of be a depressing holiday.
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Sure.
So did he like ask you out on Thanksgiving? He's like, hey, this is getting serious. I want to be with you.
Yes.
That happened on Thanksgiving.
Correct.
Were you all spending Thanksgiving together?
Yes, because, because here's the reason. Okay, so his family tends to disperse. Like, most of his family is based in Northeast Pennsylvania, but when it comes to holidays like Thanksgiving, because both of our parents are divorced, like, his mom tends to go down to Florida, like, the brother and sister might go hang out with the dad, and, you know, like, my mom tends to just be either with my stepdad or whatever. So, anyway, actually, were we even... Yeah. Anyway, so that Thanksgiving, I was like, you're not going to be with anybody. Just come over to my mom's house. And, like, she has Paula Deen playing in the background or whatever. And, like, from, like, within the first 10 minutes, he's, like, doing a Paula Deen impression for her. And he was like, okay, great. I love it when you have friends over. And I'm like, cool. So, anyway, he did ask me out that night. So fast forward,
asked you out like on a date or asked you to...
Oh, no. I mean, we've been hanging out by that point, but it was like, okay, so we're like official now, right?
Shit.
Yeah.
What year was that?
Oh, God, we were young. 2000. Oh, my God, I'm really bad at this. It was either 9 or 10. Anyway, yeah. Okay, because we had known each other for 9 years, and then follow 9. I think it was 2009.
So you all had known each other for like 8-9 years before that?
So no. Like,
wow, this is some deep relationship math.
Yeah. No, we met in 2009.
Okay.
And then I think it was like that Thanksgiving.
Y'all been together a minute.
Yeah.
You're getting married. When are you getting married?
I have no idea.
But you got the ring.
I do.
Even if he backs out, you got that.
I don't think we're backing out.
He ain't backing out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I even said that.
It's okay.
That's just what I think about when I think about marriage.
Sure.
I think about backing out.
That's why you're not married.
That's exactly why I'm not married. I'm like, oh, God, time to back out of here.
This is actually why the podcast is called Lit and Bruised.
Yeah.
You know, just like, ugh.
Matt's lit and I'm bruised. I like that ring, though. Let me see that. What is this? What's this made out of?
So, like, it's a diamond and a sapphire, and it's actually belonged to his great-grandmother, Gypsy. So it is actually inherited.
I'm going to take a picture of this, put on the Instagram. This thing's got 2 big-ass jewels in it. This is like what Kobe Bryant bought for his wife after he cheated on her.
You have to stop right now. Anyway.
That's how fucking rad this ring is. Look at this shit.
So it was like this past Thanksgiving.
This is going on the blog, by the way.
It was this past Thanksgiving, and we're both in Atlanta. Our families are kind of like this, then there, and we're like, we're not visiting any family. We may as well celebrate our anniversary. That wasn't the exact wording, but that was like the mood. So we decided to go to Jeju. We went to a Chinese restaurant. And then after we came back, I was like, all right, it was like 8 o'clock at night. I was like, I have to call my grandma. I need to at least do that much today. Yeah. So I go into the bedroom. I like call my grandma. I like come back out into the dining room area, and it's dark. And you could see Mike like fumbling to like kind of plug his phone like into like our speaker system or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he starts... Like, at first, I didn't recognize the song because before you know it, he just kind of, like... You know how, like, Gucci proposed to his now wife at the Hawks game. It was like that. He just like kind of stood up and he like gave and like was holding the ring up like this, and like I didn't process like what was going on, and he gives this whole like speech like I want to marry you and blah blah blah, and then that's when I realized that the song playing on the background was International Players Anthem by UGK featuring Outkast, this classic ass song where we had just heard at like a wedding before. And the first thing I say was like, you should have waited until the beat dropped. Because the song begins with this whole beautiful preamble with Andre 3000 just being like, you know, like to strings and to like a sample and everything like that. And when the beat drops, that's when Pimp C. So anyway, I gave him that critique because I was like, I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't know the song. And then of course I said yes. But that was the story.
I love that you critiqued his proposal.
This is why critics are stupid.
That is why I don't want to get married. I'm gonna there's gonna be like rockets and hot air balloons and like people riding horses and camels and elephants and all these crazy things happening.
But she is right. When that beat drops, that song's out.
That's when you understand the epicness of the event. But that's also how I flirt. It's very grade school. Like, I'm just going to poke you in the ribs and, like, kick you in the shins. That's how you know.
You're like, that sucked, but yeah, I'll marry you. Yeah. It's fine. It's cool. Hey, I wanna go back a little bit, though. You know, you were talking about earlier about how before you got into hip-hop, you were kind of more into punk rock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was that all about? Tell me about that. Let's hear it.
I mean, it was mainly because I had a great friend in high school. Her name was Catherine Hill, and she took me to my very first concert, which was HF Festival, which is like this big, you know, radio station run like punk festival where it was like, and I mean, these are like, I don't know.
Like Offspring and Green Day, or?
I don't know, Next Generation. These are like the bands that had like the compilations of like Hot Topic. But like Fall Out Boy was like coming out at that time too. And I remember when she put me onto Fall Out Boy, I was like, this is really fucking good, man.
Yeah.
So like, I can't even say that like I was into like the more credible punk or anything like that.
You were into pop punk.
Yeah.
Pop punk was fun though. I mean,
it was so much fun.
I hated Fall Out Boy, but hey.
Did you really?
But I wasn't like 16 when that came out, though.
I could understand their poetry is a little abrasive, but
yeah, I mean, I was a little bit. I don't know. How old are you? Is that wrong?
31.
Yeah, I'm 5 years older than you. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So when that stuff kind of hit, I was like,
yeah,
I was like, it's cool. I mean, I was listening.
Well,
to
past the pop phase.
Yeah, because like my Fall Out Boy was this Blink 182.
I loved Blink 182.
You know what? I still love Blink 182.
They're
I'm not,
cool.
well, at least old Blink 182. Just reminds me of being in high school.
See, that's
It's a
what
bunch
my
of
uncle would
songs
say.
about farts and dicks and
girls.
tits.
Oh, yeah.
Being sad.
Did you ever listen to their live album? Because
yeah.
they have a really great live album.
Oh, the Blink one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that album was awesome. It's like super fucking fast too.
Yeah.
It's like 3 times faster than their albums.
Right.
And then it's Tom keeps doing the devil voice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God, we're going way back. Actually, I would be remiss if I didn't mention my uncle too, because my uncle was like a wedding DJ, but he also worked at like a FYE.
Oh.
And like he put me on to like Blink 182. He put me on to like my better musical taste. So he put me on to like Blink, but he also put me on to like Notorious B.I.G. and like Mobb Deep and like Rage Against the Machine. So like the stuff that wasn't like
It's a good
immediately
mix.
accessible to me, he put me on to that just by like having it playing in the car and stuff.
I mean, at this point I guess, would you consider those first like 2 or 3 Blink records? I mean, are those classic? I guess they are for pop punk.
Yeah,
in terms of
almost
like,
certainly.
Yeah, in punk, yeah.
I mean,
almost
Cheshire
certainly.
Cat, that thing like redefined. a
Oh
whole bunch
yeah,
of things.
Enema of the State is probably like my favorite pop punk record of all time.
Right.
It's so good. I mean, now that's saying it. Do you like? Is Dookie in that genre as well?
Oh, hell yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Dookie is just like holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
I mean that.
Billy got his vocal take for that entire album in one sitting.
Yeah.
Never
Shut
did
up.
anything twice because he
Well-
was so prepared on that, because they went in there to record that album thinking we're never going to get to do anything like this. We just got a whole bunch of money.
Yeah.
If we record this whole thing in a couple days, we could live off Taco Bell for 5 years.
Yeah. Dude, Dookie is so amazing. And I mean, and I gotta be honest, Enema of the State, I mean, that record came out when I was 17 years old. Mm-hmm. And I love that album, you know. But Chris Rock said it best. You always loved the music that you were listening to when you first started getting laid. And it's true. If you're listening to Blink-182, you're going to love Blink-182 forever because you got laid listening to Blink-182. You know?
Yeah.
Chris Rock said it, not me. So, anyway.
It doesn't hold for me.
It doesn't hold for you.
I'll just throw that out.
What were you listening to? Were you listening to like Spin
there.
Doctors or something?
That is the most offensive thing you've ever told me.
You got a pocket full of kryptonite over there? What you got? What's going on?
Because I think...
What were you listening to when you lost your virginity?
It was like the lesser interesting like pop punk. Like, because so you know how like Blink and Fall Out Boy like spawned like a whole bunch of imitators?
Totally.
That's who I was listening to at the time. And I barely...
Like what was it?
Like, stop... You mean which bands? Like specifically?
Bands? Let's talk about this.
Like I remember... Oh man, I was going through my ticket stubs. I should have brought them. But I've collected like... Yeah, well, no. Even Sum 41 was like a little bit earlier for that. But I would say true. Like I'm trying to remember, like a Matchbook Romance, like The Used and stuff like that. I don't care for that stuff anymore.
I will say this. My friends, when The Used came out, my friends were like, hey, you should listen to this band. And I was like, that just looks awful. I don't want to listen to that. And then I listened to the first Used record, and then they opened for Andrew WK. It was September 11th, 2002, because we went to Athens, and Andrew WK did a moment of noise for September 11th, and opposed to doing a silence, everybody was as loud as they possibly could be.
I love that, actually.
Yeah, it was really
Yeah.
cool. But I was how old was I? I was 21, and I saw The Used open for NWK off their first record. Dude, I got to be honest with you, I didn't want to like that album. I mean, I was 21 too, so hey. Going back, I might not like it now, but I loved that record. I thought it was pretty cool. I thought the lead singer was like walking around outside, and he was like talking to us and hanging out, and he was like Andrew WK. He didn't like buy into his own bullshit. You know? He was just like a nice guy. He was just like, what's up? You know, just sitting there hanging out, talking.
Yeah.
And you're like, and I didn't realize at the time who the fuck this guy was. And then, 30 minutes later, I'm sitting there and he's like rocking the house, and I was like, holy shit. And he was amazing. He was super good live.
Yeah.
So I didn't really get into any Used records after that first one, but man, that fucking show was awesome.
I love that.
Andrew WK and The Used first record.
Yeah.
September 11th, 2002, a year after it happened. That shit was tight. I still have
That's one of the things that stays with you.
Yeah, it was just really neat because, I mean, at this point, there's a lot of people that were... I mean, shit. I mean, if you were born on September 11th, you're like, what? You're like 17 and a half now. I mean, it's creepy.
Oh, God, that hurt.
That shit was, yeah. I mean, I was 20.
Yeah.
Like 16 and a half. I don't know, whatever it is. But I mean, the next September 11th that rolls around, I'll be 37, and that should happen when I was 20. So 17 years later. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Anyway, great show. Loved it. I still love Andrew WK. Still love the first Used record.
Yeah.
Were y'all listening to music when you first got laid? Was there like a song playing?
No, there was no music. I broke into a house.
Oh, you told me. I think we've talked about that on the show.
We didn't have anywhere else to go, so we broke into a house.
Matt broke into a house to lose his virginity. It's amazing.
I listened to Sabbath later.
Yeah. Like, what song? Like War Pigs?
All that matters is it's number 4, which is easily the best Sabbath album to have sex to.
That's amazing.
And I will fight anyone over that.
I'm very jealous of this story because now that I'm remembering, I think we were listening to Damien Rice, which kind of just set the tone for the whole night. Like, like that was
set the whole tone for the relationship. Y'all just cried a lot.
It was very short lived. It was very short lived.
Damien Rice. Holy
I know.
Shit.
Oh, I just remember that.
I totally forgot that name.
Yeah.
I feel like I saw him at the Echo Lounge back in the day. I can't remember if I did or not because that's like hazy at this point. Damien Rice. He had that like one album. What was that song called? Like the something daughter. someone so-and-so's daughter.
Oh, I know
He was
exactly
so
what you're
sad.
talking about.
He was like the Irish dashboard confessional.
What? Oh man, I forgot about
Like you
this.
listen to it and you're like,
That's a burn.
it's true though.
I have all the more respect for artists. Like I actually really like Dashboard, but like
you
to have
do or did?
Well, I think did's fair. Like I think if we put on a couple albums, I would still know
Hey,
some of the words. But like I wouldn't want to have sex with those things.
Those
I'm sorry.
No.
That's not fine.
I don't care what anybody says.
There's nothing
Hey,
sexy about those songs.
I'm gonna back you on this real quick here. I don't care what the fuck anybody says or claims who's around during that era when Dashboard Confessional came out. Everybody, 95%, it wouldn't surprise me if Matt hated it.
Yeah.
But 95% of people loved that first Dashboard record. 85% of people loved the second one. And then it kind of like dropped off from there. That shit was interesting at the time, and nobody was doing that kind of thing the way he was doing it. And I remember I went up to Cincinnati to visit my best friend, and Dashboard Confessional was playing with the anniversary. And we were sitting there, and it was right before he just exploded. But we knew that it was going to sell out. We were like, this show is going to sell out. And it was at a coffee shop. So we showed up like 3 hours early to the show, and we bought like a bunch of tickets. And when it sold out, we walked through the line selling the tickets at inflated prices so we could buy merch. And I was selling my tickets for like $20 because the tickets were like $10. And I was selling mine for $20. Ray was walking around selling his for like $30. And like we got done, I was like, oh man, I was like, dude, I made $80. And he's just all like, yeah, man, I made like 200. I was like, you're a fucking asshole, man. Yeah, he was like, it was great though. We made a bunch of money off. Thanks, Chris Carrabba. We appreciate that.
Oh my God.
We got a bunch of cool merch.
Yeah.
Anniversary was awesome. They were really good. I don't even really remember his set, but I remember Anniversary. I loved the Anniversary.
Yeah.
First record though, they sucked after the first record.
I'm gonna have to fact check your discography theory because I honestly don't remember which albums I like the more. Dashboard, yeah.
First two records they hold up.
Yeah.
Swiss Army Romance. That was the second one.
That was the first one.
That was the first one?
Yeah.
Oh.
The second one, I don't remember what it was. I mean, it's all kind of bullshit stuff that like, you feel like you're reading your little sister's diary. But when you're like 19 and this guy's like singing about being sad about girls, I related to that.
Listen, we were all sad.
I was sad
We were
about
trying to navigate sadness.
I know. And Chris Carrabba, he just added to that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's cool. But I mean, so you didn't lose your virginity to Chris Carrabba though?
No, I did not.
Okay.
It was a little before my virginity time. Or
He's sexy.
yeah.
I mean, if it had been like with Chris Carrabba. He's like 5 foot tall, but he's hot, man.
I like how you're making up all these or insinuating all these stories. You're spinning what is it, fanfic?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
I write Chris Carrabba fan fiction.
Listen,
I think there's a market for that.
Listen, that probably exists.
Dude, that motherfucker's gonna be like 40 now, and he probably still looks like he's like 25 with like cool hair.
That's what I mean.
Shit.
Time is by his side. Everything he's fine.
Season 3, I want Chris Carrabba on the show playing like Dashboard Confessional songs.
He plays like country
live.
music now.
Oh, he does. I've seen it.
Didn't he like?
No, I saw Get Up Kids country music.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't see him.
No, he did something with Taylor Swift, like performed or was like a
What?
guest artist or something during the 1989 tour. You're gonna have to like fact check me on that, but like I swear to God, he had been out like performing with Taylor.
Hey, I'll be honest with you. We don't fact check shit around here. So if you say it, it's fact,
I know that's my worst tendency. I'm like, please fact check everything.
So Matt, Matt's always been cooler than me because I'll admit to things like liking Dashboard Confessional or Blink-182 or even The Used. But Matt, like, there's got to be like a band that was like kind of cheesy, kind of lame. And you can't be like cheesy, ironic lame. Was there ever one that you were just like, yeah, man, I love that fucking NSYNC song? Like, was there? It doesn't have to be NSYNC, obviously, but did you have something like that? Or were you just always like, especially when you were into music, were you always just like, fuck this?
Oh, I was always that way.
I mean, I remember.
I was always I actually lessened over time, but I've always been Like, I will follow a path of a band, and then I'll be like, nah, I'm done with them. And I listen to Blink-182, a lot of that pop punk stuff, but then I was just like, nah.
Well, then you were like, why would I listen to this?
Right.
But I will fight someone over Green Day Dookie. That thing is phenomenal.
I didn't know this about you.
Yeah.
I feel like we're a lot, I mean, we're close, but I feel we're like even closer right now.
And that's why that like Taco Bell thing I referenced with Billy Joe Armstrong.
Yeah.
That's from like reading numerous interviews
That's
with him
amazing.
about how they made that album.
Dude, that was a great album, though. Jesus Christ. I wish I lost some virginity to that album.
Do you ever like go through Google Books and read like old Spin magazine issues because they're on there?
Really?
Yeah. If you Google like X, like whatever band, Spin, insert whatever year, you'd be surprised as to what comes up. Because I actually do that a lot for like research and stuff
Really?
like that. Plus to like kind of geek out because like some of the ads for like, you know, like not Napster, but you know, like Napster type shit. Like it's interesting just to scroll through those past issues and like see what the vibe was like at the time.
It's completely different. I mean, the writing was different.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's names in there that I like still recognize just from like reading bylines and stuff. But like, it's interesting to see like a band or even a group or like Outkast is a really good example because they went from being like real like front of book to like, oh my God, we're going to be cover artists like now. And like, we're going to have to interview Andre and Big Boy like separately because they're on two completely different vibes for this cover story. Yeah. It's interesting to watch that unfold. I think it's like, yeah, it's like Spin and like vibe issues.
Huh.
If you ever want to geek out one weekend.
I will totally geek out on that. But what's been one of your favorite like old like Spin articles to like?
Let's see. I think I'm trying to remember. There was.
So that might give me a frame of reference of something to look for.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This is on Google Books.
Yeah, if you literally like Google Books. Actually, you know what's a really good one? This was a pretty controversial one actually, but Vibe did a story with the whole Dungeon family. You might remember the photo shoot, but it was a very ornate photo shoot where like I think 3 of them are like wearing masks and stuff.
Yes, I remember.
And like this is at the height of their popularity, but also like you know shit like that are like you know. There's
a lot of drama going on.
There's a lot of drama going on. So that's on Google Books, like in its original form. That's a really good story to revisit. Like Jeezy's first cover story, I think for Vibe. It might not have been a cover story, but it was like, you know, kind of documenting his like come up, you know, as, you know, his music is like taking off, but at the same time, like the Snowman t-shirts are being like banned from schools. It was like right around the time when his face is still like very round.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that's like on there, which is pretty cool.
It's just always so weird the way so much has changed, especially even how like, I don't know, I've still been trying to fathom this because like my love of hip hop goes back to like when I was 16 and it's amazing to me that it is such a mainstream thing now and how even like, I know we've had conversations about this before, but like how Future brought the underground mainstream.
Yeah.
No one could have predicted that.
No, totally not. It's kind of surreal because actually this week I'm like reporting on how hip hop is kind of taken off in Las Vegas, as in like Future will perform like a 2-week residency like on the Strip or something, and like how did we even get to this point? It is definitely still like a little surreal, not only because like you know that. You know, he had basically come out in like what 2012. It hasn't really even been that long.
No,
maybe even a couple years before then. But then also because it's still the feel of the music is still like underground, even though he's like collaborating with Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran on a song.
Yeah, but Mask Off was a pop song. Like
I know. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that song was like really interesting because it was like it kind of felt like the song that people like elected to be the single. Because I think he had like done like a whole music video. He put it out, and then like Mask Off was taking off, and he was like,
"Oh, like
okay."
Poppin' Tags. You had all these other songs where the hooks were a lot stronger.
Yeah,
and like that one was just like I don't know.
Yeah,
the way everyone acted like they hadn't heard a flute loop.
Yeah, people were like, "Oh man, this is so crazy." But yeah, it was.
So, you know, what's interesting is Future did a song with Taylor Swift, right? And so did Chris Carrabba.
Shut the front door. Okay.
I'm just saying. Is this episode of Lit&Bruised secretly about Taylor Swift?
Is it? No, I thought the argument was that Future is this generation's Chris Carrabba.
Oh, I like that even better. That's really good. Oh, just drop the water bottle. It's like kind of like dropping the mic without the mic stand, but so it's just the water bottle.
Right, yeah.
Oh, I like that.
I don't think so.
No,
I mean, Future's got longevity.
He's not as cheesy as Chris Carrabba.
I mean, Chris Carrabba's still around, you know?
He's still around, but like his real payday is writing songs for other people, basically doing the pop thing. I mean,
he did a song for like the Spider-Man soundtrack. I remember that.
Oh my god!
My brother had the Spider-Man soundtrack in his car, and it had like fucking. Whoa! I typed in Chris, and look who came up: Christy Front Drive. Remember them?
Wow, you're really digging deep there.
Old school like emo band. I like Christy Front Drive. Calling Chris Carrabba. Let's see what he's up to.
I knew too many people that cried to that album.
Yeah. Oh, wait, you can't type in Chris Carrabba. You just type in Dashboard. What am I thinking?
You're not.
I'm sorry that your episode has been like ruined with mentions of Dashboard Confessional.
Ruined or enhanced?
Dude, this motherfucker put out a song this year. He put out a song called We Fight.
Ooh.
It's
Look at that.
It's acoustic.
Wow.
Holy shit, he put out an album this year? Oh, wow. He hadn't put out an album in like 9 years, and he put one out this year.
Whoa.
Called Crooked Shadows. What the fuck does that even mean?
Gotta listen to the album to find out.
You guys want to talk about Roseanne?
Not really.
I've watched the first 2 episodes. They were for free on Hulu.
See, here's the thing. I
weird.
want to talk about it, but I've only read about it.
Have you read?
So I'm the same way, and I really don't feel like watching it.
I woke up early one morning. I couldn't sleep, and I was like flipping around on Hulu. I think it was Hulu, and they were like first 2 episodes of the new Roseanne. And I was like, oh shit, I'm not wasting time because this is early morning. I'm just gonna watch Roseanne, and it was weird. But what was interesting is when I was watching it, I was like Googling articles about it, and people were just talking about how awful it was. I actually found it really interesting. I didn't find it to be awful because they have what they do is that, like, you know, Roseanne and Dan are like these like Republican Trump supporters, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But everybody else in their life are liberals. You know, you've got like Darlene and Becky and Aunt Jackie. Aunt Jackie's walking in with like nasty woman shirts with like the vagina hat on and stuff, and they're arguing about it. And I just found it more interesting than anything because if Roseanne was truly like completely awful, she wouldn't allow any of the liberal stuff to be on there. And I'm not defending Roseanne. I'm just like observing this is that there was so much back and forth of like the Trump stuff and like, you know, they never say Trump and they never say Hillary, but it's obvious like what they're talking about. Yeah. But what struck me is that Darlene had she has a son who dresses in girls' clothes, and he's going. And the plot point was like he's going to go to school and he's going to get beat up at Lanford High, and it was about like how Roseanne and Dan were going to handle it. And Dan gives him a knife because he's afraid he's going to get beat up. So then the kid gets in trouble for having a knife, and then Darlene goes to talk to her son. He's like, "Hey," she's like, "What's up?" She's like, "Why did you have the knife?" He's like, "Well, I was going to give it to the kid so he wouldn't beat me up."
My God. Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah, so it's like this thing. And then it shows like so Roseanne even sits down with him on the couch, and he's like 8 to 10 years old. And she's like talking to him, asking him questions about like sexuality and things, the way that you would potentially talk to a 10-year-old. And she just gives him a big hug and loves him. And then like Dan's like, you know, one of the next days of the kid after he got in trouble at school, he goes back and he's wearing a dress or a skirt to school, and Dan like hugs him and is like, "I love you," and he walks out, and Dan's like, "That kid's tough as nails," kind of thing, you know, like this like respect thing, like you know you're gonna get shit and you're gonna do this anyway. And I found it really interesting. And so when I was reading these articles about like how the show is all these terrible things, I was sitting there, I was like, Well, I mean, I only watched 2 episodes, and I'm pretty sure it showed like Dan and Roseanne accept their grandson who wanted to wear women's clothing to school, and I just found it interesting. I mean, I don't necessarily, I haven't processed it that much because I haven't really thought about it that much because it's fucking Roseanne,
right?
But I found it intriguing, and I would watch more episodes if they were free.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pay for that shit.
Yeah, it's fair. I'm actually more so waiting for just like all the, because this is the period in time when like the reporters have gotten like the first 5 episodes and they're all kind of rushing to get their opinions in to like, for SEO, and we want people to read our shit first. So I'm waiting for all that shit to kind of like die down so we could just like take a breather for a second, because I feel like more often than not our first impressions of shit are usually wrong.
Yeah.
We usually get it wrong. And
we're usually also, I think it's like nature, we want to sell people on something.
Right.
First impressions.
Yeah. And I mean, just like also, it's interesting because I mean, a lot of media is like what it takes place in either like New York or LA. It's like along the coast and things like that. And so while they might have their narratives fed to them all day, the fact of the matter is that there are people like Roseanne that, are sort of like middle America or whatever. Not to say that middle America couldn't be depicted differently or, it could take on more than one type of image other than like a John Goodman. But like, that stuff, these people do exist. If anything, this is sort of like parallel to how the 2016 election sort of unfolded, because a Trump victory kind of blindsided everyone.
Yeah,
I talked to my friends in like New York that was like, they're still like, I don't understand how Hillary lost. And I was like, if you left the city for like 2 seconds, you could easily see how Hillary lost,
Go up to Kennesaw and hang out with my dad.
I know, seriously. Yeah. Even just leave Atlanta. Like for
drive like 30 minutes north, and 90% of those people voted for Trump. I work with a lot of them, so I had, and my father and stepmother, voted that way, and it's just like, what the fuck? But that's the reality of it. So, like, a lot of people, they don't talk to their people who voted that way, and I'm like, I have to talk to them, because if I don't talk to them, well, 1, they're my family,
right.
And 2, like, how can you influence people if you don't have conversations with them about why you disagree with them? And you don't have to argue. You can just be honest and be like, hey, I just don't agree with that. Watch Roseanne. It's interesting.
I will.
It's, I think it's on Hulu for free right now if you have Hulu. But I don't know. TBD. TBD, truly. I mean, it was just, I find things like that interesting. When you have... I found it interesting that they included both sides of the spectrum, and I didn't feel like either or was like dominant.
Yeah.
It was Roseanne felt this way, and obviously she's the main character, but outside of Dan, every other character was liberal.
Yeah.
I felt like it was a good balance. So
yeah, it's just a matter of like who the joke is on, right? I think that's the distinction that a lot of people have to make. Like,
I felt like and I mean, I am a liberal. I mean, I didn't vote for Donald Trump. I voted for Hillary, and I don't feel like the joke was on like left-leaning folks. I just felt like it was just kind of right there in the middle. Like the joke's kind of on everybody. Like you're arguing over this thing. And it's done, and we're going to allow... Because, in the show, like, Jackie and Roseanne hadn't spoken in, like, 6 months to a year because of their disagreements over the election. And then with the kids all coming back home, it was almost like Fuller House on fucking Netflix. But with all the kids coming back home, they were forced to speak to each other once again. And I think that I almost feel like that's the joke. Like... You let something so stupid drive you apart from each other. Like in families of people not because they disagree on politics, they allow that to like ruin their families. Maybe that's the fucking joke, that we can't fucking get along with opposing views, and that's sad.
I mean, it's just such an unrealistic expectation, and I think with the way that we've talked about politics, and with the way that media sort of like evolved, like it's I think it's presented itself in almost just like a very polarizing way. You either have to be on this side, and then the lines are like clearly drawn in the sand. But like you said, like there's almost no possible way. There's no way that you can insulate yourself in that bubble for forever because it exists within your family. My stepdad voted for Trump too. And when we talk about leading up to the election, when we talked about like the sort of things that we agreed on and what we disagreed on, we're like, we had way more in common than I think anybody would have given us credit if he come out and be like, oh, I'm a Trump voter. And it's like, oh, I ended up voting for Hillary in the election. It was just a simple matter. It ended up being a single issue. He just didn't vibe with how Obamacare panned out.
Yeah.
And he was like, he really didn't want Clinton. He didn't want a Clinton back in the White House.
That's how my dad was.
So he voted for Trump.
Yeah. My dad hated the Clintons. He hated Hillary. He voted for Obama in the first term. I mean, that's pretty wild.
My stepdad voted for Obama twice.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's interesting, but I think when we cut ourselves off from hearing opposition, that becomes dangerous because it's okay. Even if, you know, at the core of it, I think that it's, I don't agree, but be open to criticism. Be open to hear other sides of the story. You never really know. You know, I talk with my dad about it decently and other people, and you know, I could try to be empathetic. You know, just because it didn't work out, and I'm not saying it's okay the things that Trump has done because they're not. It's fucking terrible. But those people who voted for him, I know that they definitely put him in power, but I don't think they realized the weight of what they were doing. A lot of people, you know, because you heard him saying a bunch of crazy shit, and you think, hey, maybe he's just going to tone down a little bit, and then he's still being who he is. You know, I had a very existential moment talking about this. That I just realized that Donald Trump is our president again, and oh my fucking god, Jesus Christ, what the fuck? Yeah, I have those weird moments. I just literally just had that. I kind of blocked my mind from it.
But what about this whole like the polarization that's happened? I think it's something that was completely inevitable.
Yeah.
Because it was being exploited for years.
Oh my God. I think about that billboard that was in downtown Atlanta. It was like down the street. It was in between the Ferris wheel and the CNN Center. And it was advertising like the debates to come. And it's literally just close-ups of their ginormous faces, Trump and Hillary, I mean. And the way that it was presented, it was almost like some Justice League DC versus Marvel shit. I remember with like the bluish tones.
Yeah, you're like waiting for the heads to just collide.
Yeah, and it was just like, what the fuck? This isn't an entertainment event of the millennium. No, that like our lives are based on this shit. But yeah, absolutely. I even think back to like election night. Like election night for me was very much that SNL skit that came out like immediately after. Do you remember?
Dave Chappelle.
With Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock, right? Like, well, literally, like somebody had brought over champagne to my friend's house because, like, to celebrate our first female president. And then, meanwhile, like we had the TV on CNN, and I don't know if you guys were tuning into that channel that night, but like their whole thing was like with every 10th of a percentage of like ballots that were cast in, the screen would just flash key race alert. First of all, it sounded like a DJ Khaled nightmare. But then also it gave me so much anxiety because I was like, oh my God. So they are really trying to make this into like the craziest weather sports report that we have ever seen. Like they're really just trying to make us like feel super, super anxious as like these percentages like crawl up, and it kind of felt exploitive.
Oh yeah, it did. I tuned out at one point, and then I just kind of, I remember, I don't think it was CNN. I think it was one of like the locals. But they had a foreign journalist on, and they were talking about like, no, this makes sense with what's been going on in the world.
Yeah.
And then I ended up spending the rest like not sleeping and just staying up and just reading a whole lot of foreign press journals and looking into things going around. And it was just like, oh yeah, everything's falling apart. Everyone's jumping towards authoritarianism. Everyone's questioning reality and what's truth. And America made a reality star president. Yeah, that about makes sense with what should be expected.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my God. Well, first of all, like I ended up getting pulled over that night because of like my taillight was out, but I honestly thought this is the beginning of the end. Like shit. So that happened. But there's two like stories that like just came to mind. One is a New York Times Magazine profile of Andy Cohen of Bravo Network. basically just kind of breaking down how he built this reality TV empire, because he produces like all the housewife shows and like stuff like that. And in it, he's like basically like, yeah, of course we were getting a reality show president. Like, you would have been completely foolish to have not seen this coming because of the way that we buy into personalities, and actually just kind of how the nature by which we elect celebrities, how we expect people to be like these constant spokesmen, whether they're Donald Trump, whether they're like Kendrick Lamar, whether they're like Oprah Winfrey. For whatever reason, we turn to them. They have to be the ones to say the right things, because we're at such a point where like being a good politician or being like a good civic leader just isn't enough. It's like, no, they have to have the sparkling personality and the zingers to go along with it. The second thing I just remembered was like this article by 538, and it was breaking down how rappers had referenced Trump over time, and it was basically measuring it by like good connotation, bad connotation. And spoiler alert, it flipped when Trump became president, or when it looked like a Trump presidency was imminent, because before, Trump was a symbol of wealth. You went to the Trump hotel, you went to have a business meeting with like Donald Trump, stuff like that. He was exactly who you wanted to be. I think like Jeezy said he was Donald Trump in a white tee or something. Yeah. But then as soon as like he became president, it was like, fuck Trump, and all this stuff. And it was
Kanye the first to kind of like say something negative? I think about Donald Trump taking dollars from y'all.
I don't think so, but I don't think it was Kanye. I don't remember who it was though.
Because it was always a positive metaphor for wealth and everything like that.
Yeah.
Because I remember that one Kanye line on Dark Fantasy, and it was just like, it just kind of hit. It was just like, whoa.
Oh, well, if it is from Dark Fantasy, then maybe.
Yeah.
Huh. Anyway, some food for thought. It was just super interesting to me.
Well, no, I was thinking about David Brooke. He was a speechwriter for Bush, and he's been saying for years that all that's needed is for someone to say, "I hear you. You're angry about this. Just acknowledge them."
Oh yeah,
and they will be voted in.
Yeah,
and he actually thought Sarah Palin would be the first to really tap that.
Interesting.
Like, he actually has a really good book out where he breaks down. It's The Death of the Republic or something like that, where it's kind of like he's like, I've been saying for years, and I saw it when the birther thing started happening.
Yeah,
this is going to happen.
Yeah. And I think Bun B ended up touring. He interviewed like a whole bunch of people. Like he just did this whole U.S. tour with I think like with Vice News or something like that, just like interviewing people in towns that Hillary Clinton wouldn't even tour to. And like he saw it right in front of his eyes. He was like, these are the people who are voting for Trump because Trump bothered to show up. You know what I mean? Like, 'cause
it didn't matter what he said.
It didn't matter what he said. It was just like, he saw them, he acknowledged them, and it was like, okay, you made the effort, I'm going to vote for you. Simple as that.
Isn't that our human nature? We just want to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
To know that our pain is heard.
You're right. All right.
Even if we don't even believe it will matter.
Right.
Just the acknowledgement of it.
Right.
By loyalty.
I mean, that counts for a lot more than I think people take into account. You know? Like, it's not even just about saying, like, the right thing or saying, like, or having, like, knowing exactly what that person needs to do, like, right then and there. You know? Acknowledgement counts for so much more than I think people give credit.
There's that George Orwell quote about, it's not so much about being loved, but being understood. And that's a paraphrase of it. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's, yeah, people just want to feel understood. And this guy shows up and he goes, "You've been treated like shit." And they go, "Yeah." And he's like, "I'm not going to mention that I'm going to treat you like shit, but I'm acknowledging that you've been treated like shit."
Oh,
and
yeah.
they go, "Thank you for," I mean, it's exactly what y'all are saying, but people want to feel understood.
Yeah.
And when somebody bigwig shows up, politician or whoever it might be, and they say, "Hey, I hear you," they're like, "That guy's amazing."
Right.
Even if they, you know, he does not have their best interests at heart, but hey, got the vote.
So I don't want to lean into ending this on Trump-related notes. So I'm gonna change up some gears real quick.
Let's do it.
Christina, who's your favorite artist that you've interviewed?
Favorite artist that I've interviewed?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Did you ever interview me? JK. No, that was a bad joke.
Oh man.
I mean, because your Run the Jewels interview, that thing was awesome.
You know what? I mean, that I did get to spend a lot of time with them, and I do cherish that a lot because I did interview them for Paste magazine. Actually, it was for a cover story, which is something
Just kidding, Paste.
It was admittedly something I never thought was going to happen, but they were so gracious to me. They talked to me for like 90 minutes at like Corner Tavern on Edgewood. Jeez. And then immediately after headed to their rehearsal studio space, and LP just hands me his phone and he's like, treat this with your life. And it had Run the Jewels 2 on it. So I go into the hall and I plug, some earbuds into the album. And like, I remember being in such a stupor afterwards that I think LP almost took it as like a diss. I was just in complete loss for words. I was just like, this is so, but like, he was just like, oh, okay. And I was just like, this is so fucking good. And I have to figure out how to articulate this later. But yeah, they were really great and gracious. And, I think through that conversation, they really, and I mean, through their music, obviously, they kind of really expanded on these ideas about heroes and villains and why, we choose to like ascribe people to like these clear, distinct sides, and yet how things aren't as they seem. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Oh no,
but people who often portray themselves as heroes, like in society, I mean, are they really our heroes? Like, and these are the sort of questions that we've had to ask ourselves, like then with all the stuff. I know you weren't trying to end on Trump, but it's like, are these
it's
people...
It's happened before.
I know, but it's like, are these people really on our side, though?
Yeah.
Are they really? Are the people who we
side?
choose to villainize, like, are they actually, like, all that bad? It presents all these questions. Anyway, they were super cool. Killer Mike is always a really great interview, and they were just super gracious. So, yeah, thank you for reminding me that happened. That was so much fun. And it was very surreal.
I can only imagine. I've stood next to Killer Mike at shows, and it's just like he towers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But in general, they're just like, I mean, these personalities, you know?
But yeah.
Who do you want to interview that you haven't interviewed? Like, who would be like the dream? Who's on the top of the pyramid?
There's people who I've still yet to interview. I actually keep a running list in my planner, and I wish that I had it right now. I know Andre 3000 is on that list, and I say that solely because like I've had the privilege of interviewing Big Boy like several times at this point. And I'm just hungry for that other perspective on like Outkast history, because I think the last time I interviewed Big Boy, I was just like asking him super nerdy questions, like, and all this other stuff. So I think he's definitely on the list. And like, okay, this is gonna not be an obvious answer, but there's a rapper who actually grew up in the same county in Maryland who I did. His name is Logic. Logic is actually really big right now. Like Logic, he is from, I think, Gaithersburg, Maryland. And he, to most like respectful rap people, is actually really corny, in the sense that with his, I think, second album, I want to say, a lot of it just kind of focused on how, like, I think he said he was biracial like 20 million times.
That's the thing that's always turned me off. I'm just
absolutely.
Like, that's the thing you keep hooking on.
And that totally makes sense. That guy.
What's his song?
But he has a song that's like
Every Day.
He has another song that's like
44 more.
There was like it's like a phone number. Yeah. That's a suicide hotline. So like, so he became really popular, like off the strength of that. He like performed it live and like really bowled people over. And something that's always kind of interesting to me is like, maybe like the people who aren't like the coolest necessarily, but they've been elected to be our stars anyway.
Yeah.
I'm like really interested in how he sort of navigates these different parts and like our very clear-cut ideas about what's considered respectful. I don't know.
I would not have expected that answer from you.
I think it would
really
be super
glad.
cool. I think it would be really super cool, actually, because like, I don't think he's ever going to get the sort of credibility that I think a lot of people would want out of like hip hop. But like, clearly he has an audience. It's similar to like J. Cole, but yeah, he's never going to be like, or maybe he will be. I have no freaking idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. But those fringe acts always tend to interest me. I had interviewed T-Pain before, and then, but I think had there not been a really great New Yorker piece on T-Pain, like I would have said that for sure.
Yeah.
Because he was another example of someone who people just considered to be really silly.
Yeah.
But he influenced music by like a lot.
Yeah. I remember being a part of those, just like, that's just bullshit when he was just coming out with all the vocal stuff. And then it was just like, no, I totally get this now.
Yeah.
Like to really change it, you had to go. But that's also kind of how hip hop's always worked. Like to introduce something new, you don't go subtle.
Right. Yeah. And we'll debate about respect all day and whether we need to sound like our elders like all day and stuff like that. You know?
But only thing that matters is Eric B. and Rakim's coming to Atlanta soon.
Hey, yeah.
My little old head coming out right there.
I love it. I mean, because like and that's the thing. That's what's so interesting about like debating hip hop sometimes is that like our conversations about like the greats kind of tend to revolve around the same 10 to 12 names, kind of like with, I guess, like literature, like the great American authors, like the same people will get recited over and over again. But like, I love complicating those discussions. I love that you bring up Eric B. and Rakim because like they should absolutely be on that list. There's absolutely an argument for that,
I remember hearing Don't Sweat the Technique. And like I was a punk rock kid at first. And then like I started like Public Enemy, NWA, Eric B. and Rakim, like hearing those, it was a whole nother perspective of things. And also being a white kid in the suburbs, it was also like, whoa, there's a whole nother world that I'm being told doesn't exist by everyone around me.
Right.
Like I remember sitting around listening to like Death Certificate when it came out and then being like, Watts riots. What's that?
Oh my God.
And then just starting reading about the Watts riots.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, my family and everybody is racist as hell. They've been lying to me about everything.
But that's what I find that's so interesting about like hip hop. I mean, it's not exclusive to hip hop, obviously, but hip hop in particular has like this knack for just like chronicling like textbook history events in ways. And so it's so interesting to kind of view these events through that lens, or even if it's not even as catastrophic as like the LA riots.
Yeah.
It could be something as simple as like how Atlanta has changed over like the past 20 years. Their music becomes like an artifact for that. And you can, I mean, here's the thing, like somebody who you could have on this show is like Regina Bradley, who like is literally like an outcast professor. And that's like a dream job. Like, of course that should be a job. Anyway. The music is definitely worthy of that analysis.
Yeah,
that's my whole
but
point.
that's also come from one of the reasons I think it can document so much is hip hop doesn't have to have one tone in a song.
Right.
Like if you have a punk rock song, each verse is supporting each other. But with hip hop, each verse can be a completely different perspective about a different place, a different person.
Right.
And you can listen to it 50 times and still be picking out new things.
Yeah. I actually thought about this very recently, and I don't know if it's because of like what I grew up listening to, but I actually realized that I might in general just like group albums more than I do like a solo album, like by anyone. I don't know what it is, but something about the groups. Like, so for example, like...
No, we've had this conversation about Heems.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. About how you love them in Sweatshop Boys, but solo.
Not so much. Or like Migos, like with Migos, for example, if people will argue all day, like Quavo is like the Beyonce of the group. And I'm like, I'm so not interested in that right now. Like the Wu-Tang solo stuff, like some of that stuff is obviously very great, but I'm actually just way more interested in them as Wu-Tang Clan. Because like you said, like those different perspectives and the way they sort of like get to bounce off each other, it's not about ego at that point.
I was actually going to ask you all what your favorite hip-hop albums or your favorite classic was, because mine is probably the first Wu-Tang album, like 36 Chambers. I love that record, and I don't feel like anybody's done anything that has impressed me as much as that record.
Right.
Which is funny, because that came out in, like, 94?
Yeah.
And I still, like, think that, like, 24 years later. Like, I hear music today, and I'm like, I don't think it's more creative than that.
I mean, there's definitely stuff that's happening that is like creative, but I mean that one is.
But at least things that like resonated with me.
Sure.
I was like, well, you're taking like old like kung fu movies and like rapping about them. And,
I
like,
know.
Playing their clips and their samples,
right,
in your songs,
right.
Like, I don't know if I've seen anything that I thought was as cool as that since 1994.
Right. Well,
that-
I mean
is that
that
bad?
album. I mean that album was very, very clearly like influential because like today there's still like an affinity toward like. I mean there like if you looked, I actually did this for Pitchfork and it was crazy, but I kept a very detailed spreadsheet of all the Asian leaning references in all the rap songs I could find.
Yeah.
And of course that included like Wu-Tang Clan in the sense that with the Kung Fu samples, like I would categorize all these sort of references and stuff like that. And what I found like over time was that when Wu-Tang came out, first of all, there was just an enormous amount of people trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Whether they were sampling the films or they were just like, you know, just trying to embody the Tao of like whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that was so interesting to kind of see that statistically like unfold. And now it just kind of like devolved into like corny Asian jokes, like about getting with the Asian girl, or I think Drake has a line that's like, shout out to Asian girls, let the lights dim some, right? So it's like shit like that now. But yeah, all that is to say is that Wu-Tang is influential, and that's complete.
Totally.
Your affinity toward that is like completely understandable.
I just loved it, and I still like when I hear it, I'm like, oh man, that's so good.
Yeah,
It's so creative.
yeah.
And I don't feel like they're trying to be corny. I think they're just totally like. I feel like at the time that they were just like really fucking into this
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're just doing it, and it was real, and it just I don't know. I've listened to that, and I'm like, I don't know if much else feels more authentic than that. You know, I've always liked the Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah.
In 36 Chambers, that production is so lo-fi.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah, because they were making that out and then just selling them out of the trunk of a car. Like,
I love that. I mean, it's very punk rock, really. You know.
work with what you got.
Right.
So what's your number one album?
Like number one, like all time.
classic, or-
Yeah.
Yeah, like classic.
rock.
Are you talking about like my personal goat?
yeah, like Desert Island.
I hate
You can
lists
only
like
take.
these.
I know. I love it.
I
though.
hate it. Oh my god.
You got to pick one.
No.
Well,
Just pick
I
one.
always like to kind of see it as like, what's the album that like you can listen to at any point?
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. 'Cause it may not be necessarily your favorite, but it's your most listenable.
Probably Ice Cube's Predator.
Yeah.
I love that pick. I kind of want to revisit it when I get home.
I mean, the production from DJ Muggs. All right, this is the only thing I'll say about old versus new head is I don't understand why new producers do not use upright bass samples. I mean, outside from like Alchemist and well, people who are still trying to stay true to the New York sound. Like no one messes with the upright bass samples anymore.
Gotta make it come back like the flute, man.
Yeah, someone's got to put it on a track, and it'll just change everything.
I don't understand like 90% of what you guys are saying. And I'm okay with that. I just needed it to be clear that I did not understand. So if anybody out there was like, it's John Carroll, he's just in on this hip hop conversation. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just listening. And I just so happened to randomly like that first Wu-Tang album a lot. It was really good. What's yours, Christina?
Oh my god, I hate that.
Like an album you go back, you can listen to anytime.
Well, okay, because like, I guess part of it is by default. I knew it was going to complicate this answer because I still have a CD player in my car.
Ooh.
Full disclosure, I still have a CD
I
player
have
in
a
my
CD
car.
player in my car. I mainly listen to Bluetooth, but I've got one in there.
No, I don't even have Bluetooth in there, and so
You have like an 8-track as well.
I wish. Okay, anyway.
Play the Shaft soundtrack.
Oh my god. Anyway,
Yeah.
listen. So I only have a CD player in my car, and this is a 2006 Hyundai Sonata. It's the car I moved to Atlanta into, and within the first couple weeks of me like settling into the city full time, I like pulled up to what's the coffee shop in Oakhurst?
Kavarna?
Kavarna. I pulled up to Kavarna and like I parked like a couple houses down, and they had just wrapped a yard sale. And they were like, okay, so they had a box of stuff that was just like, they couldn't sell. So they were like free. So I poke my head in there, and the first 3 Outcast albums are sitting in there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nobody bought them. Nobody bought them.
Yeah.
The nerve. So that's to say, I go back to these albums in part because I have them on CD and I can play them in my car, and I like listening to music while I'm driving.
That's amazing.
But it would have to be either AT Aliens or Aquemini.
As well as like, wow, welcome to Atlanta.
I know. It was so crazy. I think about that like all the time. Yeah, so I would say those albums, like, for sure, because I mean, initially they just became like you said, like a welcome home banner, like almost. But then I always find that between like the production and like their lyrical knots, like whatever's going on, I find there's always something new to kind of sort of fixate on and like study.
I think my second record would be Stankonia.
That album's so good.
It is so good. I had it on CD, and I would just listen to it all the time. And it was just, there's so many good tracks on it. I don't know. I didn't skip the skits. I would just listen to the skits.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, totally.
But we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah, it's getting late, y'all. I gotta go to bed. You know, gotta get my beauty rest here. Christina, it's been so wonderful and to have you on our show. You're so lovely.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We haven't seen you in such a long time. So thank you so much for showing up and hanging with us and talking about all kinds of weird shit with us, and we appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You have anything you want to plug or anything?
Oh, God. I don't know. When is this coming out?
2 weeks.
You know what? I have no idea.
Okay.
It's fine.
Come to her wedding. Christina Lee's getting a wedding. Look for the Facebook group.
Oh, God.
Look for the Facebook event. Come on down.
And I'm sure I'll probably drop a whole bunch of links to certain articles of yours.
Perfect.
In the blog. So if anyone wants to check them out, they're all fantastic.
That Bone Thugs and Harmony Mariah Carey duo. Didn't they do that? I feel like
I don't think so.
I feel like that happened.
You know,
Bone Thugs and Phil Collins happened.
That's amazing. Can we include that link?
Sure.
Thanks. Thanks.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and don't die dumb.